Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the new moon in Virgo, which is happening on September 9th, 2018 at 1:02 p.m. Central Standard Time in the United States. So Virgo is a mutable earth sign and rules the 6th house in astrology. And Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury, which is the planet of communication. And the other sign that is ruled by Mercury is Gemini, which is an air sign. So what these two signs have in common is the gift of gab, I guess you could call it. But with Virgo, it's much more practical. The knowledge that Virgo wishes to obtain is practical, while Gemini loves knowledge for the sake of knowledge. And so when we come into this September period, well, actually even from late August, we have the sun going into Virgo, and this is a time when we become more practical. At least that's how it feels for me. But I don't know, I have the moon in Virgo, so maybe it just rolls with me that way. But I think that anytime the sun is in a particular sign, it kind of sets the tone for that time period, for that 30-day period. And so it's about getting down to brass tacks. The 6th house that Virgo rules is all about organization, organizing your diet, because the 6th house is health, okay? So anything related to your health and how you can impact it in a positive way is going to be featured here at this new moon, because it's all about new beginnings, right? So sowing the seeds that will lead to a later harvest when it comes to enhancing your health, when it comes to your daily routine. And I used to, I'd hear astrologers saying your daily routine about the 6th house. And I'd say daily routine, because I work for myself, so my daily routine is totally open. It's up in the air, so to speak. I have to be the one that decides to do this or that. Nobody's cracking the whip, so to speak, I just realized I said so to speak twice in 2 sentences. But anyway, the point is that some of you, or maybe most of you, work 9 to 5, or, you work an 8-hour day in a very organized sort of way. And you might be saying, I don't get to organize my day. I have to work for somebody else, so they set the hours. But you would be incorrect, because you have 24 hours in a day. And I think this is something that I would like to impress upon those of you who feel like you're stuck on that kind of hamster wheel. If you maybe are fantasizing about working for yourself, or maybe you want flex time where you can work part-time from home and don't have to commute all the time. And hey, I think that that would be wonderful. I think that every business out there should at least offer flex time, if at all possible, because there is a lot of wear and tear with people, just that kind of like stress and, the energy expended that comes from just the commute, let alone having to put on certain clothes that, you don't normally wear that might not be comfortable, or, all the things that we have to do that when we go out to work. And the more that you can feel autonomous, that makes you feel more powerful in your life in general. Let's face it. When you feel like somebody else is pulling the strings, it's hard to feel like this conscious co-creator of your reality. And so definitely striving for at least some autonomy is a worthy goal, in my opinion, if not total autonomy. And so looking at your daily schedule and how it is right now, and thinking about some of the choices that you make let's say on your off hours, maybe you typically watch television for a few hours a night or surf the internet, okay? And maybe you talk to people on the phone. I don't know what you like to do. It's going to vary from person to person. But here's the thing. Even 1 hour that you can free up, that hour can be a power hour. And if you don't know how you want to get from point A to point B, then you can just spend that hour meditating or visualizing or, just daydreaming of what you want. And the more free time that you can take to go in the direction of your dreams, the better. For some people, it's going to take training where you're going to have to get a piece of paper. Maybe it's a certification, maybe it's a college degree. If you want to do that thing, don't think that you have to do it in all cases in order to be a legitimate person in a certain field. But if there's a very specific thing that you want to do, then you have to get that piece of paper. And that means you have to perhaps take classes. And sometimes it may be physically in a classroom. Sometimes you can take them online. But the point is that you may have to carve out time for that. And that means that if you tend to watch TV, you might have to put that aside. I guarantee you that you won't regret putting aside watching TV or surfing the internet mindlessly for doing something with intention. So this is the kind of thing. I'm getting very specific here, but I'm just trying to set the table here for what this new moon is about. It's about organizing your life. It's about organizing your health. Do you need to get up earlier to pack a healthy lunch for yourself if you tend to just grab something on the go at lunchtime, but it doesn't make you feel good? It could be that that's something that you need to start doing. It could be that you need to carve out time for exercise. But you know what? I'm a big believer in organic exercise, in making your daily routine part of your exercise. So instead of driving to the store, walk to the store, even if it's 2 miles, and believe me, I wouldn't tell you to do this if I haven't done this. I don't drive. I don't have a driver's license. I don't want a driver's license. And so whether it's biking, whether it's walking, that's how I've, gotten my groceries from point A to point B. That's how I have done things. And, when you're carrying 2 shopping bags or tote bags, if you will, of groceries, that's like lifting weights, isn't it? I mean, you're engaging those muscles, and you're doing so very practically, where you're taking care of 2 things at once. The 6th house is also the house of work, so there may be new job prospects on the horizon. There may be this sense of a new, I don't know what you'd call it, like some kind of project that you want to accomplish. And there is this desire to really work, to really accomplish. And it's different than the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of career. This is the house of work and service to others. So working for the joy of the work itself, and really examining this in terms of what your future endeavors involve. Because the 10th house to me is like the house of the glory of the career achievements. It's your place in the world, your reputation. The 6th house is your service to others. And how does this get tainted sometimes by the ego? By the what we would assume to be the self kind of inserting itself into things. Now, it's interesting because the opposite sign of Virgo is Pisces. Pisces rules the 12th house, which is immaterial, just as the 6th house is material. The 12th house is the house of spiritual dimension, karmic past, so past lives, in other words. It's the house of spirituality, meditation. You know, you kind of like in hermit mode, you know, and you're the hermit in the zodiac, Virgo is. But that Pisces is where the hermit goes, in their own little sanctuary. The 6th house, being the opposing sign, is very grounded. So the 12th house is mental health. The 6th house is physical health. But how are those two things connected? And actually, at the time of this new moon, there are a bunch of oppositions to Neptune, because Neptune is in Pisces currently. Very long transit. And so let's see. I guess Neptune is at 15 degrees of Pisces. Wow, it's directly opposing my moon. That's quite interesting. So the sun is opposing Neptune. The moon is opposing Neptune, and Mercury is opposing Neptune. What does this mean? Watch for projections. Watch for projections and lack of integration between the spiritual and the material. I think of the Temperance card in the tarot. It's funny how I'm totally like connecting to the tarot when I do astrological readings. So the Temperance card shows the angel with 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land. And this is kind of what that opposition between Virgo and Pisces is you've got the earth element and you have the water element. And you can combine those two things. You don't have to be so practical that you completely scoff at the notion of spirituality, nor are so spaced out that you are totally in some other dimension, but you don't even know you're wearing 2 different socks or 2 different shoes, that you're so out of touch with the reality of this 3D world. You can have both of those things at once, and you have to, because with the sun and moon in Virgo, which is going to be present at every new moon, there's a conjunction between the sun and moon. And in this case, Mercury is also in on the action. Although Mercury is far enough apart at the time of this new moon that it's not aspecting either the sun or the moon, but it's in there because it's in the same sign. There's going to be, I think, a lot of people who, at this time in our evolution, are wanting to have the kind of work that makes them happy, that makes them feel like they're doing what they came here to do, but they can't seem to implement it, okay? And that's how I see these oppositions of kind of swinging wildly between the practical and the spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I also mean that sense of the ideal, your ideal life, and things like that. And I feel like there's frustration with some people because they want to be free, because Mars is squaring off to Uranus. So they want to be free, but they feel like they're trapped, okay? And they don't have a sense of identity with the moon, with the sun in opposition to Neptune. The sun is our sense of self. And this can also include in this incarnation the type of work that we gravitate towards. So obviously, people from different sun signs are going to be watching this or listening to this. So it's going to be totally varied depending on what your sun sign is, also depending on what your north node is. I mean, we can't neglect that either. And whatever it is, I mean, you could be in this type of job or profession that everybody around you is always patting you on the back. Oh, I'm so impressed. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, something that, tends to have high status. And you could be completely miserable because even though you're talented, you don't feel it. That's not where you want to be. And you got suckered into it because possibly you were pressured by family, or maybe you did really well in school and the guidance counselors were saying, oh, you should be a doctor. You do so well in science, or, blah, blah, blah. And you just went along with the program because that's something that we are inundated with from the time we're born, other people's opinions of us. And I think this is kind of almost like, I'm treating this like this is a full moon, but I'm getting this vibe that is like, people are wanting to break free. So even at the time of a full moon, things can come to a head simply by virtue of individual people's, whether or not they've had the last straw, breaking in their life. So don't think that new moons automatically indicate that people are just, doing things and they're starting afresh. Sometimes this can be like, if you have this new moon in the 7th house, that could be the day your divorce comes in. And we could easily consider that a full moon activity. And yet, think about it. It's a new lease on life. It's a new phase in your marriage in the form of divorce. I mean, I've seen this in charts, and it's kind of puzzled me. And I said, wait a minute, this is new moon activity, and yet the people are getting divorced. And yet that's a new phase in their relationship. I have been experiencing both with strangers and, people that I know, somebody specifically, but I think there might be more than one example of this. Well, I mean, I think it's within the last few years, but people that have been together for many years splitting up, and sometimes fighting for many years, and finally calling it quits. And we have at the time of this new moon, Venus square Mars. So the divine lovers are at loggerheads, they're fighting. They're not, there's not that sense of them in harmony. And, I was just on the train the other day and overheard somebody on the phone yelling into the phone, talking about their partner or talking to their ex, I guess it was. And, the kind of drama that I think is really pretty commonplace these days of people not getting along in their romantic relationships. Again, Mars has been squaring Uranus for a while, I believe. And also at this particular time, Venus is opposing Uranus. And Uranus is the planet of freedom and nonconformity. And whether this is in relation to your sense of goals, ambition, which Mars represents, or your love life, which Venus represents, you might be saying, you know what, I don't care what other people are doing. I want to be happy. I deserve happiness. And I think in some of the long-term cases that I know about, that even when there's like an egoic battle taking place between two people, and they really feel this sense of wanting to be right in the relationship, that eventually one surrenders and says, I want to be happy more than I want to be right. I want peace more than I want to be right. And so I would advise those of you who are experiencing this kind of dynamic to surrender to the situation. Surrender does not mean give up, does not mean throw in the towel. It means let go. There is a difference, even if it seems subtle. There is a difference, and it's a beautiful difference, and it's a necessary difference, because the alternative is to live a life where you are constantly in a state of turmoil, and no one needs turmoil in their life. As a matter of fact, at the time of this new moon, we have Mars in Capricorn, another Earth energy. Not close enough to the Sun or Moon or Mercury to aspect it. Actually at the 29th critical degree. So all of the lessons that we've learned from this retrograde are being brought to light, because Mars actually went retrograde in Aquarius and is poised to re-enter Aquarius. And at this point, however, whatever house Mars is in for you at 29 Capricorn, that is a very potent turning point for you to assimilate those lessons about your desires and how they fit into the grander scheme of things. Venus is at 0 degrees of Scorpio, so very much on the cusp with the preceding sign of Libra. And this is I think this is a very romantic cusp, because at 0 degrees of Scorpio, it modifies the more intense qualities of Venus in Scorpio and retains some of the Libra traits. But it's a nice harmonizing effect, because it's not too light and it's not too heavy. It's just right. And it's also a very important portal to the energy of this Scorpio placement, okay? For the I take that back, not for the few weeks, for actually the rest of this year, because October 5th, Scorpio in Virgo, I'm sorry, Virgo, Venus in Scorpio retrogrades. And it goes back into a late degree of Libra. But a typical transit of Venus is only 3.5 weeks. So when you have the retrogrades happening, and you have, in this case, Venus going back into another sign, then it has to go back through those two signs. So it takes time to do that. And so right now we have the beginning of this Scorpio energy in Venus. So Venus becomes more intense. Our emotions become more intense. And hence some of that conflict that we're seeing with the Venus and Mars energy, where someone may really believe that their partner isn't being as attentive maybe as they should be. The reason this is forming a square in the first place is because Mars is at that last degree of Capricorn. So it's really on the cusp with Aquarius. And Aquarius is known for detachment. So when there's ever a transit, or, like an aspect between Scorpio and Aquarius, it's always going to be between the intense and the more detached. And the same applies if you have this combination in your natal chart, for instance. And that can indicate that you blow hot and cold in certain areas. In this case, it can be that there is this fear of one or the other, fear of the intensity or fear of the detachment. One person fears that somebody else is too detached, and one feels the other is too intense. So what nice things are happening now? Well, I think that this is a wonderful new moon. I think that it's very productive. It allows us to get things done, okay? And remember, we're coming into this month where we've had all these retrogrades. Saturn goes direct on the 6th of the month. And so as I record this, it's in a couple of days. And that is a planet, that rules Capricorn. That is all about career matters, getting ahead, achievement. So there is a lot of that kind of thing going on, a lot of this influence of productivity and trying to get things done after this long period of just like things not moving. So it's great for launching, and it's great for also just seeing the fruits of your labor. You may have been laboring for the last couple of months, or even if you want to include Saturn in the picture, 5 months. Let's see, May, June, July, August. Yeah, 5 months, and feeling like you're wading through molasses in a way. Mercury forms some nice trines. Trines are easy-flowing energy. There's going to be a Mercury trine Saturn that is great for focus. If you're a student, it's great for studying. If you're just researching something, it's great for that. And Mercury trine Uranus, great for coming up with ideas that are original instead of just kind of, if you will, taking from somebody else and maybe tweaking a little bit, but basically copying somebody else. This can, if you can come up with an original idea, it can be a real moneymaker even. And then we have trines from the Sun and Moon to Pluto. Now, Pluto is that ruler of Scorpio along with Mars. And so that Plutonian energy is very scorpionic, and yet the positive traits of Scorpio include willpower, any kind of, let's just leave it at willpower, because that sense of the ability to direct the self and remold the self is very powerful at this time, because the sun is our self and we can transform ourselves. And with the moon trine Pluto, this transformation can take place on an emotional level. And this can be awesome because we can, with that Mercury trine Saturn, it's great for meditation. Because meditation, especially in the initial stages, well, I'll say, actually the opposite of that. Especially as you go along, you develop your mind like this muscle that I'm talking about, like your concentration, for instance, the ability to be able to not allow outside influences to affect you. That is very important when you're trying to achieve things in life. Because let's face it, there are lots of distractions. Hello, social media, right? And we have to be about something more than that. And I want to get back to that because I talked about social media at the beginning, and I want to end with that. Because sometimes I notice, and it's kind of amusing, when people speak about social media and how it's a time suck and how it's an energy suck, and they're talking on a social media platform about these, shadow sides of social media. The other, the commenters tend to point out, but you're on social media. But that's the difference. Just because you point out something negative about a particular thing doesn't mean you're going to throw it out altogether. This is that black and white thinking that is not only simplistic, but it is so shallow. Well, that is simplistic, isn't it? But it's also untrue, and it's reactive. Social media has wonderful benefits. It can bring people together who share common interests, and they can network, and they can actually even benefit financially from it if they begin an online business, and they can showcase their work, they can get paid for it, gain clients from it, and it just has wonderful advantages. It's when people are coming to it from an emptiness, from a desire to distract from things that are bothering them, that they abuse it. And I would imagine that all of us at one time or another have done this, just as people do with other things in life. You can use it or you can abuse it. And if you identify with that, and if you think that you are using it in the wrong way, maybe using it too much, that it has taken over your life, this is not meant to shame you one bit. It's serving a purpose, and you should honor that purpose. You should never say that there's something wrong with that purpose, because I believe that if you're somebody who is watching videos in a bit of an excessive way, you could be going out and drinking and getting drunk and becoming physically addicted to it. You could be doing so many things that are more destructive. So if this is the worst that it gets for you, then I'm not that worried about it. But the thing is, this is the point I'm trying to make, is that with this new moon in Virgo, look at your life as a whole and see if there is something that you need to change that relates to how you engage life on a daily basis in a practical way. Do you need to simply write out what you're going to do every day? Are you too aimless? Are you, some people use the excuse if they're not employed or if they are retired as reasons why they should just be completely rudderless in life. And, speaking as somebody who has Neptune in the 6th house, so you want to talk rudderless, everything that I'm saying to you, I'm saying to myself, because it's something that I need to hear and I need to absorb. I'm very much that Neptunian influence when it comes to my daily flow. Just flow, drift out on the sea of life. And when it happens, it happens. When I do this, this happens. That could be an important way to break certain habits for people who are type A personalities. But if you're not a type A personality and you're not heavily regimented in your daily routine, then you need to be more so. Keep it flexible. Keep it so that if something else comes in that is unexpected, that you can address that need, and then you can pick up where you left off. But you don't just totally drop what you're doing and then go off on a tangent somewhere else. And I know that some of us do need more organizational skills. So if that's you, seek them out. They're out there. But don't use being unemployed to not have a schedule, to not have goals that you want to accomplish. The more that you can keep a consistency to your life, and the more that you identify goals that you'd like to achieve and then figure out a way to make them work. Like I said before, if you have a 9-to-5 job and you feel overwhelmed and maybe you have a family on top of that, you're saying to yourself, I don't have an hour. I always say, if you do not have an hour to spare in your life, then you need to totally rework your life radically, because you should have it. I used to read those women's magazines like Mademoiselle, and they would say, try to carve out 20 minutes in your day. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? There are really people out here who don't have like a spare 20 minutes that they have to really like try to carve it out of their day. To me, that is a life that is too overscheduled. And to me, it's hard to enjoy your life when you have that much of a regimented routine. So I'm not talking about doing it like that. I'm talking about a happy medium. So I'm going to end it on that note, and I wish all of you a wonderful new moon in Virgo. Take care. Bye.